You ever have one of those moments where the world just tilts under your feet and suddenly everything you thought was safe and normal turns inside out? That was me, sitting in a dinky little community center packed with neighbors who used to wave at us now, whispering behind their hands, all because the queen of the HOA, Margaret Thornfield, decided my 8-year-old daughter's sidewalk chalk was a federal offense. And if you'd told me a year ago the most dangerous place for my family would be a fluorescent lit HOA meeting and not a cartel hideout, I'd have laughed you right out of my kitchen. But here we are. So let me back up a sec. It started with a rainbow, not a metaphor, not a protest, just a crooked, bright, lopsided rainbow with "Welcome Home Daddy" scrawled underneath. All drawn by my little girl, Emma, the day I got back from 6 months undercover. I remember walking up the drive, still half in my FBI headspace, and seeing her jumping up and down chalk dust in her hair, holding that ratty old bunny she sleeps with. But you'd have thought she spray-painted gang signs the way Margaret acted, 3 months of hell over that one rainbow. But the truth, it started way before the chalk. It started the day we moved in. Margaret knocked on our door, clipboard, fake smile, and a list of suggestions that boiled down to "your family doesn't fit here." The Mexican flag in the flower bed was provocative, the mailbox too ethnic, and don't even get her started on the music during my kid's birthday. Every complaint wrapped up, neat as a present, but always with that edge. You know what I mean? My wife Maria would just roll her eyes, but I could see the way Emma got quiet when she heard Margaret's voice. So there we are in this makeshift courtroom, neighbors all around, some looking anywhere but at me. Mrs. Chin from 2 doors down wouldn't meet my eyes. The Johnsons, who borrowed my mower last month, sat stiff as boards. Margaret's at the front looking like she just bit into a lemon, flicking through photos of our house, slamming them down like evidence at a murder trial. She's got this way of talking like every word's dipped in battery acid. "Your family has flagrantly violated HOA regulations," she says. "Tonight this circus ends." I wanted to laugh, but Emma was sitting there in her favorite dress, gripping my hand, and I couldn't do anything except try to hold her together. I kept thinking I've faced drug lords, arms dealers, real killers, and yet I'd never felt fear like this. Because this wasn't just about rules or chalk. This was about someone who decided people like us didn't belong, and she'd use every tool in the rule book to make sure we knew it. She laid out our crimes roses, the wrong shade of pink mailbox, 3 inches too tall. Emma's bike on the lawn for, wait for it, 47 minutes. She actually wrote that down. Garbage cans visible from the street 13 minutes late. Christmas lights up 3 days past the deadline. And my personal favorite, children laughing during quiet hours. You know, I always thought the sound of kids laughing meant you were doing something right. Margaret thought it was a violation. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just coming for our property. She was coming for the very idea of us belonging here. And there was this moment, Margaret slamming her hand down, yelling, "This family is a cancer on our community." And the room, half of them nodded along. Henderson's, Cooper's folks I thought were friends. The other half stared at their shoes. It's amazing how quiet people get when they're afraid they'll be next. Then the death blow fines totaling $15,000 and a recommendation we leave within 30 days. Emma's lip trembled and she pulled my sleeve, whispering, "Daddy, did I get us in trouble? I just wanted you to be happy when you came home. I swear that broke something in me." And you know what Margaret did? She smiled at Emma's fear like she'd finally won. That was the moment. I'd handled mob bosses with less hate in their eyes than Margaret had for a child with sidewalk chalk. "Are you threatening my daughter?" I asked, keeping my voice flat, not giving her the satisfaction. She just shrugged. "I'm educating her about consequences," she said, smug as you please. The racism wasn't even hidden anymore. And just as I was about to take Emma and get the hell out, Margaret reached into her purse. Now, I've been trained for situations like this. The second I saw the gun, everything slowed down the room, the people screaming, the neighbors ducking behind chairs. Margaret points that pistol hand, shaking, but her voice rock solid. "Your kind needs to learn respect." My blood turned to ice, but all I could think was Emma's behind me, and I need to keep her there. I stood my ground. Margaret put the weapon down, I said, switching to my agent voice. The one that makes suspects freeze, she sneered. You people bring down everything you touch. Emma was sobbing, and that primal part of me, the dad, not the FBI agent, was ready to tear the world apart. Last chance. Margaret, put the gun down. She actually laughed wild-eyed. I am the authority here. I decide who belongs. That's when I pulled out my badge. FBI. You're pointing a loaded firearm at a federal officer and his minor child. Lower your weapon, now. You should have seen her face. Shock, then terror, then a kind of unraveling, like she finally realized just how bad she'd messed up. The gun dropped clattering on the floor, and suddenly every phone in the room was out. Neighbors who'd been silent for months now, filming, realizing this wasn't some HOA spat. This was about to be national news. I'd been documenting everything, every letter, every voicemail, every time she followed Emma with a clipboard. The evidence was all there, plain as day. I called for backup local police and federal. Margaret just sat there crumbling as Emma ran to Mrs. Patterson, one of the few neighbors who'd ever been kind. When the uniforms came, it was like a dam broke. People who'd never said a word started coming forward, telling their own stories about Margaret and her little reign of terror. Turns out my family wasn't the only one. And the stuff they found, Margaret's own notes, emails, even plans to drive out other undesirable families, was enough to take down half the HOA board. The video from that night, it went everywhere. Margaret pointing a gun at an 8-year-old over sidewalk chalk, yeah. That headline wrote itself. Overnight, our quiet suburb became ground zero for the whole national conversation about HOA, abuse, racism, and who gets to feel safe in their own home. But the twist, the real surprise, was Emma. At Margaret's sentencing, my daughter asked to speak. She wore a yellow dress, stood in front of the whole courtroom, and said, Your Honor, I forgive Mrs. Margaret. My daddy taught me if you hold on to anger, your heart gets heavy. I want room in my heart for good things. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Emma told the judge and the world, different doesn't mean bad. Different means you bring new colors to the world. Maybe one day, Mrs. Margaret, you can try drawing with chalk. I'll teach you how to make rainbows. Margaret got 18 months in federal prison, 3 years probation, and enough community service to fill a lifetime. The HOA dissolved, the whole board replaced. Property values actually went up, believe it or not, and families who'd been scared finally came back outside. And Emma, she never stopped drawing. Our new driveway, yeah, we moved, became a mural for the whole neighborhood, and this time everyone joined in. You know, I learned something through all this. Justice isn't always clean or easy, and sometimes the quietest kid in the room is braver than all the grown-ups put together. Chalk washes away, but what Emma taught us, that courage, kindness, and standing up for what's right, sticks around a whole lot longer. So, what do you think? Was justice served? Is there ever a good reason for rules to turn into weapons? Drop your thoughts below, because after everything, it turns out the real fight is for the kind of community we choose to build, and that, my friend, is one battle worth having.